Welcome everybody to Wednesday afternoon Yin Yoga. Under the new moon of Lunation 12/13. The new moon actually was yesterday about 9 p.m. Pacific time. But we're still within that window. Consequently, this class will be about as yin as it gets. And with that idea of yin, stillness and quiet, solidity, begin settling into the mat. Allowing the points of contact to press into the mat and into the floor as the floor is pushing back in equal measure. Allow the ambient sounds to serve only to relax you further. And those things within your field of vision to become simply light and shade, or various colors with no other significance. And as you're continuing to relax, bringing your attention to your breathing. Noticing the movement of the body with each breath, the expansion, the contraction of the abdomen. Perhaps the rush of air through the airways on the inhale and the exhale. And watching that breath in your mind's eye. And allowing your breathing to become very, very light and easy. So light and so easy that it's impossible to hear your breathing. And very difficult to feel it. Yet your breathing continues. As you're oxygenating your body with each breath. Drawing in air on the inhale. Breathing it back out on the exhale. Breathing in calm, comfort, and serenity. Exhaling stress and tension. Just check in with how you're feeling now at the beginning of the practice. Maybe set some sort of intent for your time on the mat this evening. And perhaps for the weeks to come within this lunation, 12/13. And then moving into the first posture. It's a supported back extension. So find your way to your back. The feet flat on the floor, knees obviously bent. And lift the hips so that you can place the block beneath your hips. Most likely on the medium height. Then reach both legs out. Of course, making sure the block is under the hips as opposed to the spine. And then with both hands and arms reaching overhead, bringing the index finger and the thumb together, maintaining the contact, and melting over the block. Lightening the breath. So that it's impossible to hear it. And very difficult to feel. As you're relaxing your body, calming your mind, just dissolving into the experience. Points of contact between you and the mat and the floor. Becoming more indeterminate. Where your body ends, where the floor begins. Where the floor ends and your body begins. The pelvis becoming part of the block part of the pelvis. And should the reduced breathing become too little, go on and draw in a slightly deeper breath, and then return to it. Lightening the breathing. Further relaxing the body. Allowing the mind to become more and more still. Now it could be after a few minutes in the posture that a desire for greater intensity or range is developing. Maybe you've melted as far over this block as you can at this level. And if that's the case, let's simply bend the knees, bring the feet flat to the floor. On the inhale, lift the hips. Turn the block on end. Again, making sure the top edge of the block is at the top edge of the pelvis. Then reach the legs back out. Reposition the arms overhead. Bringing the attention back to the breathing, making it light and easy. So light and easy that it's impossible to hear. Very difficult to feel. Noticing the differences in pressure. Between the points of contact. Your body and the floor. Your body and the block. Perhaps noticing areas that are now presenting tension in this elevated posture relative to the less aggressive midway position of the block. Yin yoga, of course, being a long hold practice, is similar with restorative yoga. One of the differences is that instead of unloading, the postures seek to load the tissues. Applying enough load to stimulate the ligaments and fascia. Yin yoga is not a particularly comfortable practice. It is a wholly therapeutic practice, though. soon everyone will be moving into the next posture, which is the deep squat of gambling. Because this posture may not be easily available to everybody, there are a couple of options. Depending on your ankle joint flexibility, it may be useful, advantageous to roll up a blanket and place that beneath, rolling up a blanket and placing that beneath your feet. Let's try that once again. Rolling up a blanket and placing it beneath your heels. That will allow you to fall forward into the posture, bypassing that ankle joint restriction, allowing you to sit comfortably in a deep squat without falling backwards. As well, if it's necessary to take some load off of the joints, the knees and the ankles, then placing a block on the medium or higher level will suffice. Now, on the inhale, bending both knees, bringing the feet flat to the floor. On the next inhale, lifting the hips, pulling the block out from beneath, lowering the hips, and then drawing your knees up toward your shoulders, hugging your thighs into your rib cage. Squeezing in. And then releasing the legs, letting the feet come to the floor. Placing your elbows down, lifting the upper body, coming to the hands. So feet, hips, hands. From there, make sure the feet are about hips width. Point the toes out slightly and push yourself from behind right up into that deep squat. Now, if you need to adjust and put the blanket beneath the heels, go ahead and do that. Or position the block beneath the hips. Go ahead and do that. However it works for you. As well, if you need to adjust the position of the feet a little wider, a little narrower, go ahead and do that. Find a position that allows you to relax into the posture. And then move the legs a little bit, shimmy the upper body in, get as far in between your thighs as you can. Let the hips sink. Let your body tip forward so you feel the shin bone come toward the foot bone and maybe even touch. Bring the hands to the floor, allowing the palms to find purchase on the mat or on the floor. You may find it useful if another block is nearby or a bolster to place that in front so you can hang on to it, or you can take your fingertips and just hook those over the edge of your mat. Then let the chin fall toward the chest. Returning your breathing to that reduced breath. Light and easy. So light you can't hear it. So easy you almost can't feel it.
the lunar phase is the new moon. The new moon is fully yin. Yin, of course, is cold and still and solid. In the early heaven Bagua, which is the 8 changes. The Trigram, representing the new moon, is Earth. A stack of 3 broken yin lines. Earth is receptive. Nurturing. And it's where the creative force of heaven begins to manifest. That manifestation can be an actual seed germinating, or that can be a metaphor. An idea that's just beginning to take shape. In contemplating the next 4 weeks, what idea or project might you be beginning? At the outset of this new cycle. and in the several minutes of the posture. What's changed? Has any tension subsided, or has it shifted and gone deeper? Is there more or less pressure between your rib cage and your thighs? Is the reduced breath any easier to maintain? And now in coming out of the posture, reversing the way you got into it, bringing the hands behind you, lowering the hips to the mat, and then lying back and hugging your knees in. Then taking the left leg, stretching it all the way out on the mat. Rolling over to your left so the right knee comes to the floor, making sure the top hip is tipped forward. Taking the bottom hand, resting it on the top thigh, and then bringing that top arm out on a diagonal. If your hips are 6, your head is 12. The arm's going out to about 10 o'clock. Make sure the palm is up. The posture's twisted root. And this happens to be one of those postures where just by being still and patient, a significant increase in depth can occur, even within a few minutes. So returning your focus to your breathing. The gentle ebb and flow. So gentle, it's impossible to hear your breathing. Very difficult even to feel it. When unconscious, reduced breathing is very natural. Conscious, reduced breathing is an acquired skill. It's worth practicing. If you find your hand and your arm are on the floor, maybe tilt your hip forward by sliding the knee forward across the floor. Enough to raise the arm and the hand. So as to maintain that application of load, of stress on the tissues. Maintaining the stimulation of the fascia. Mechanical stimulation that effects particular changes. Generation of bioelectricity. Which ultimately preserves the younger and more favorably arranged fibers of the fascia. Producing hyaluronic acid, which attracts fluid and thus hydrates these tissues. As well as lubricating the joints the tissues surround. And by communicating directly with particular sensory receptors, in the language they understand, load, the speed of application of that load, and the duration of that applied load. They don't begin to pay attention until about 2 minutes in. And by this point, your posture and those sensory receptors and the attendant tissues have a pretty good conversation going. And you might notice how your posture has changed over these few minutes. Considering where your hand started to where it is now. If your arm isn't yet on the floor, maybe just tip the fingertips down, touching the nails to the floor. Perhaps recognizing that they may be a little bit closer. Of course, if necessary, sliding that top knee forward to tip the hip forward. So as to continue the twist. Now at this point, scanning the body. Noticing where the sensations are. How the hand and the arm feels. How the shoulder and chest feels. How the area between the rib cage and the pelvis is feeling. Around the surface and deeper toward the spine. And then on your inhale, as you're drawing that outstretched arm in toward the center of the body, rolling over onto your back. Bending the knees, bringing both feet flat to the mat, and as wide as your mat, then letting the knees fall in to touch, resting your palms on the bottom of the rib cage. Noticing how the right side of the body may feel different than the left side of the body. Is the difference is the difference in sensation greater blood flow, the tingling of nerves, or the circulation of qi. And then, drawing your knees up toward your shoulders, squeezing the thighs into the upper body. Releasing the right leg, stretching it out lengthwise on the mat. And then rolling over onto your right side. Bring the top knee to the floor. Bottom hand goes on the outside of the top thigh, and the top arm goes out on a diagonal. Once again, hips are 6 o'clock. Head is 12, arms going out at 2 o'clock. Relaxing into the posture. Returning to the reduced breath. Noticing where your hand is now. Considering that relative to where your hand was at the end of the previous iteration of Twisted Root. Noticing whether the body is moving toward greater depth, more quickly or more slowly than it did on the other side. checking in with how the posture may have changed in these few minutes. Is the hand where it began? Has the tension in the hand, across the arm, the chest, the midsection increased or decreased? Of course, if necessary, slide that knee forward to tip the hip forward, to raise the arm. A posture such as this, as well as square, which, as you know, is that cross-legged forward fold. Can both demonstrate the power of stillness and patience. Accomplishment through doing less. Just setting up a situation, a particular shape, within the gravitational field. With knowledge of the character of certain tissues, knowing how they'll react and respond to exactly this situation. And watching, just simply bearing witness to the event. Posture deepens on its own. Although there are specific forces at work. From one perspective, there's movement with no effort. Results without trying. There was another quote that I came across attributed to Bruce Lee. Well, I don't remember the exact quote. He was extolling the virtues of remaining calm, ultimately, he said, calm, when cultivated, becomes a superpower. Not always easy to remain calm. But by practicing, calm becomes accessible. Even in turmoil. A yin practice, along with a breathing practice, is an ideal way of cultivating calmness and serenity on your terms. On your next inhale, noticing where your arm is right now and hand relative to the floor. Drawing that outstretched arm in toward the center of the body as you roll over onto your back. Bringing the feet flat to the floor as wide as the mat, letting the knees fall into touch. Resting the palms on the bottom of the rib cage. Just lying there briefly. Noticing how the left side of the body feels compared to the right side of the body. Are you feeling increased blood flow? The tingling of nerves? Or the circulation of the life force? Now drawing both knees up toward the shoulders, hugging the thighs into the rib cage. Squeezing. Then on the exhale, releasing both legs to the floor, spreading them wider than your mat. Bringing the hands and arms wider than the mat, as wide as you'd like. Adjusting your body so you can find a comfortable symmetry. And relaxing fully, melting into the floor. Last posture, Pentacle.
So as you're starting to return to ordinary awareness, begin by wiggling your fingers and your toes, rotating the wrists and the ankles, moving the arms and the legs. And then with a deep, yawning inhale, reaching with both hands to the wall behind you. Both feet to the wall in front of you, lengthening the body. And now rolling over onto your right side into a fetal position. Curling up snugly. Allowing yourself a few more moments to fully absorb the benefits of the practice before getting on with your evening. Then drawing in a full inhale and the exhale, pressing up to a seated position. Bringing both hands into the lap, right and left, thumbs touching. Checking in with how you're feeling now at the end of the practice compared to how you're feeling at the beginning. Revisiting whatever intent you may have set. And then closing off the subconscious mind to all negativity, going forward into Lunation 12:13, bringing both hands to the heart, Anjali Mudra. The light in me sees the light in you. Namaste.